Hello there, good afternoon. You will be watching the Al 24 News with me. I'm Abdurrahim Kashour, streaming live from Algiers. And coming up next, our program. Chinese city of Tianjin to test 40 million people after COVID outbreak, and port near Beijing began mass testing after 20 children and adults test positive, including at least 2 with Omicron. As order is restored in Kazakhstan, its future remains murky. The tragic events of last week, in which dozens lost their lives, have exposed hidden political tensions. An air strike in Ethiopia's Tigray region killed 56 people and injured 30, including children in a camp for displaced people. Amazing milestone, James Webb telescope fully deployed in space. Webb's travel with scan to cosmos for light streaming from stars and galaxies from 30 billion years ago. The AFCON, or the African Cup of Nations, begins today, Sunday. One house coming on Facebook in Faso in Group A at 5 p.m., less than 3 hours from now, local time here in Algiers. Hello again and welcome. Following a wave of recent COVID-19 cases, including 2 caused by the Omicron strain, the city of Tianjin advised its 14 million residents to stay at home while it undertakes mass COVID testing. Chinese officials are already dealing with the major outbreak in Tian in the country's northwest, which has raised questions about the country's zero-tolerance policy of severe lockdowns and mass testing to combat the outbreak. It is worth mentioning that there was no bigger lockdown order in the northern Chinese city. India's second most populated state, Maharashtra, has introduced new restrictions as cases continue to surge in the region. The state has announced a night curfew from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. starting from January 10th. In addition to that, the government has also shut schools and colleges till February 15. The country reported on Sunday 159,632 new COVID-19 cases, which is over 5-fold increase since the beginning of the new year on the 1st of January. The total number of new cases was only 27,553. According to data shared by worldmeters.com, the United States on Saturday reported over 466,000 new cases of coronavirus disease, which pushed the overall tally to nearly 61 million on January 3rd. The country set a global record in daily tally with 1,080,211 cases. The Omicron variant of COVID-19 is wreaking havoc across the United States as the country continues to record an alarming increase in the number of infections on a daily basis. Protesters rallied across Europe against the government's policy of COVID-19 vaccine passes. In France, more than 100,000 people marched across to show their fury against the plan of the vaccine passes. Mariam Zian.
In most of Western Europe, citizens took the streets to express their anger against COVID-19 vaccine requirements. In France, over 100,000 people rallied against the government's new plans of vaccination requirements that will be applied by January 15th. In Paris, 18,000 demonstrators carried posters that read "Truth, Freedom, No to Vaccine Pass," and chanted a phrase replying to Macron's statement that resulted in chaos with the same language. According to the French Interior Ministry, 10 people were arrested in the capital and 24 others across France, with some police officers slightly injured. Whereas in Vienna, 40,000 people rallied against vaccine passports requirement, which will be implemented starting from next month. In Germany, protesters rallied in many cities, with a great majority in Hamburg holding posters that read, "Enough, hands off our children," since the government is considering to vaccinate children. Vaccination opponents and coronavirus deniers, according to the German health minister Karl Lauterbach, have lost all measure and emphasis in their arguments.
A small group is willing to wipe all scientific knowledge off the table and voluntarily enter the bulb of bogus truths.
And in Italy as well, people protested against the vaccination rules for people above 50 and the people who use public facilities.
Kazakhstan's situation has not witnessed a general order restoration, mainly in the country riots epicenter Almaty. Dozens of people have been killed, thousands have been detained, and public buildings across Kazakhstan have been torched over the past week in the worst violence experience in the oil and uranium producer since they became independent in early 90s as the Soviet Union collapsed. Ayed Usama.
Kazakhstan is still witnessing messy circumstances which affected the country's security and stability. Thousands of citizens are still taking the streets against the last price spike in the country, which remains unacceptable for the people. Over 3,000 people were detained during the riots in the country's industrial capital Almaty. Numbers of citizens amidst Kazakh security forces, in addition to protesters, were put to death during the violent clashes which went nationwide. Kazakhstan's former intelligence chief has been arrested on suspicion of treason as the former Soviet Republic cracks down on a wave of unrest and starts to assign blame. A number of strategic facilities in Kazakhstan are under the guard of the Russian-led military alliance invited to restore order, according to the presidential office on Sunday, amid the deadliest outbreak of violence in the country's 30 years of independence. Tokayev's office stated that he had told Russian President Vladimir Putin in a phone call that the situation was stabilizing. Tokayev has ordered his troops to shoot to kill to end what he has called attacks by bandits and terrorists. The Kremlin said Putin backed Tokayev's idea to convene a video call of leaders from the Collective Security Treaty Organization, under whose umbrella Russia and 4 other former Soviet republics have sent troops into Kazakhstan to help restore order. It was not clear when this would take place.
At least 56 people have been killed and 30 others wounded in Ethiopia's Tigray region following an air raid on camp for civilians displaced by the brutal conflict in the northern region. In a tweet on Saturday, Gachwa Reda, a spokesman for the Tigray People's Liberation Front, said another callous drone attack by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's forces on a camp for internally displaced people in the debate had claimed the lives of 56 innocent civilians. The Ethiopian government announced on Friday that it would forgive and release some of the country's most famous political prisoners to facilitate national dialogue. Political prisoners announced on Friday include opposition leader Jafar Mohammed, senior Tigray party officials, and prominent members of the rebellious Tigray People's Liberation Front. At least 200 people are believed to have been killed in villages in the northwestern Nigerian state of Zamfara during deadly reprisal attack by armed bandits. Residents returned to the villages on Saturday after military-organized mass burials. The state government said 58 people had been killed during this attack. At least 22 tourists died in freezing temperature after being stranded in heavy snow, Pakistan northern Murray city, where thousands had flocked to enjoy the snow. Some 1,000 vehicles are still stuck in Murray, 40 miles northeast of the capital Islamabad. Zara Farjani.
Heavy snow trapped thousands of cars on roadways while falling in the area of the Murray Hills Resort overnight Friday and early on Saturday. The snow was so severe that heavy equipment brought to clear the area initially got stuck during the night. Officials called in parliamentary troops and a special military mountain unit to help.
For the first time in Pakistan, such a huge number of tourists went to Maree, which created this huge crisis. So we had to close all traffic to Maree. Some people have been rescued, while some have returned. At least 16 to 19 have died in their vehicles. Locals in the area are also delivering food and blankets. We're only allowing in vehicles with food and blankets, or anyone in an emergency situation.
Pakistan's emergency service released a list naming 21 people confirmed dead. Emergency officials distributed food and blankets to people while they were trapped in their snowed-in vehicles, but many died of hypothermia. Others may have died from carbon monoxide poisoning after running their car heaters for long periods of time.
The situation is really disastrous here and people are very anxious. We have provided medicine, water, food supplies to help them tide over adversities.
Prime Minister Imran Khan said he was shocked and upset by the tragedy, but that the unprecedented snowfall and rush of people caught district admin unprepared. By late Saturday, most roads leading to the area's resorts were largely cleared of snow and thousands of vehicles had been pulled out, but more than 1,000 were still stuck.
Egyptian authorities have released Rami Shat, an Egyptian and Palestinian human rights activist, from prison for more than 900 days after having him abandon Egyptian citizenships. Rami Shat arrived in France on Saturday after being imprisoned in Egypt for over 2 years. Rami was a member of several secular political groups in Egypt and co-founder of the Egyptian pro-Palestinian BDS movement. After being given to the representative of the Palestinian Authority in Cairo, he was sent to Amman, Jordan, where he boarded a plane to Paris. Turkmen president has called close of the country's most famous Potapalin site, the buried natural gas Qata, known as the Gates of Hell, which had been burning for decades and was a popular tourist attraction for a tiny number of people, will close. According to Turkmen portal. The Qata was caused by a gas drilling collapse in 1971. Geologists light a fire to stop the gas from spreading, expecting the gas to be burned off in a few weeks. As another step toward the rise of tension between the two countries, Iran has imposed sanctions on dozens more Americans, many of them from U.S. military, over the 2022 killing of the General Qasem Soleimani in a drone strike. According to Reuters, Iran's foreign ministry said the 51 Americans had been targeted for what is called terrorism and human rights violations. The step lets Iranian authorities seize any assets they hold in Iran, but the apparent absence of such assets means it will likely be symbolic. President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa has stated that the ruling African National Congress, ANC, must try to reclaim popular support after being submerged in corruption scandals and torn apart by disputes. On the occasion of the ANC 110th anniversary, Ramaphosa struck a somber tone, emphasizing that Nelson Mandela-led party, which helped South Africa attain democracy, had lost voter support. More international news in this roundup by Marwa.
Albanian police fired tear gas and water cannons on Saturday as protesters stormed into the headquarters of the opposition Democratic Party in an extended power struggle between party rivals.
As Serbia faces numerous environmental problems following decades of neglect, hundreds of people in Serbia spent their holiday protesting and blocking roads against the plans for lithium mining in the Balkan country. Anti-mine activists have organized weekly gatherings to keep pressure on the populist government of President Aleksandar Vučić to scrap the possibility of lithium excavation in western Serbia. Prime Minister Ana Brnabić declared that her government was close to annulling any deals with multinational mining company Rio Tinto, which has explored the area and wants to extract lithium.
The United Nations said it would invite Sudanese military leaders, political parties and other groups to take part in a political process aimed at ending a crisis unleashed by a coup in October.
After Djokovic was denied entry to Australia after landing in Melbourne to defend his Australian Open title, a court was meant to be held. However, an offer by the Australian government to delay his appeal against deportation has been rejected by a judge overseeing his case. A court stated that the request to delay the hearing until 12th January had been refused without prejudice, and that submissions must be presented to the court at 10 local time on Monday.
Voters in Barinas, a province in eastern Venezuela that has been controlled by the ruling Socialist Party for more than 2 decades, will return to polling places on Sunday to cast polls in a do-over gubernatorial election.
A wall of rock collapsed on boats carrying tourists in Brazil's Furnas Lake, which caused casualties. At least 7 people have died and 9 were seriously injured. The people hurt in the accident had broken bones and 1 was in a serious condition in hospital with head and facial injuries, officials say.
World food prices have risen to a level never reached for 10 years. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, food price jumped 28% in 2021, contributing to the acceleration in inflation seen last year against the backdrop of recovery economic. More with Nabil Khazini.
According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, global food prices reached a 10-year high in 2021. Rising by an average of 28% compared to the previous year. According to Abdulrazak Abbasian, the prices in all food categories jumped last year due to strong demand. And despite last December's fall, Abbasian said that a return to more stable market conditions this year are slim.
While normally high prices are expected to give way to increased production, the high cost of input, ongoing global pandemic, and ever more uncertain climatic conditions leave little room for optimism about a return to more stable market conditions even in 2022.
Over the year as a whole, the vegetable oil price index jumped on average by almost 66% compared to 2020, reaching its highest level ever recorded. Grain prices rose by 27%, hitting a level not seen since 2012, with corn prices soaring 44.1% and wheat rising 31.3%. Sugar also knew a strong growth of 29.8% over the previous year and reached its highest level since 2016. Higher food prices have contributed to a broader surge in inflation as economies recover from the coronavirus crisis, and the FAO has warned that the higher costs are putting poorer populations at risk in countries reliant on imports.
In the same line of thought, the Turkish Statistical Office stated that goods prices rose by 36.1% last month compared to the same period in 2020. The highest number since October 2002, when inflation reached 33% before President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's party came to power. Hussein Burkan will not follow.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan continues to defend his economic options a year and a half before organizing the next presidential elections, while official data showed that inflation in the country reached its highest level. The Turkish Statistics Authority announced that inflation rose to 36% on an annual basis. This ratio is a record since 2002 due to the significant decline of the Turkish lira against the dollar during 2021. Popular vegetables such as potato, onion, eggplants, green beans have seen price increases of more than 50%. This increase in goods prices is 7 times higher than the government's primary goal. Most central banks are raising interest rates to help cool inflation, but Turkey has gone the other way. This led to the collapse in the value of lira after President Recep Tayyip Erdogan prioritized exports over stabilizing the lira that lost 44% of its value against the dollar last year and fell again 5% on Monday before recovering and remaining steady.
Coming back to the economic sector, and for more economic news, let's follow this report by Nabil Khazini.
The French National Commission for Informatics and Freedom imposes on Google to pay 150 million euros and Facebook 60 million euros for violating European rules on the protection of private data. US tech giants, including the likes of Apple and Amazon, have come under growing pressure over their business practices across Europe, where they have faced massive fines and plans to impose far-reaching EU rules on how they operate. Kazakhstan plunged into chaos this week. An internet shutdown hit the world's second biggest Bitcoin mining hub. The internet shutdown in Kazakhstan took an estimated 15% of the world's Bitcoin miners offline. According to the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, Kazakhstan is just behind the US in terms of its share of the global Bitcoin mining market, with 18.1% of all crypto mining. Technology giant Samsung Electronics announced it expects a 52% jump in profit for the last 3 months of 2021. The global chip shortage was in favor of the Korean company, which estimates that it made $11.5 billion won in the period. This comes after the company's chip manufacturing operation in Xi'an, China, went into lockdown from 23 December following a coronavirus outbreak. Qatar Airways company blames the European plane maker Airbus for surface flaws on A350 jetliners. The Gulf company also asked for additional compensation of $4 million for every day, or 21 days, the period of the company's A350 planes remained grounded. Qatar Airways also asked France-based Airbus not to attempt to deliver any more of the jets until what it describes as a design defect has been fixed.
The golden reflector, the centerpiece of the new James Webb telescope, was straightened out on Saturday into its fold. The biggest astronomical mirror ever sent into space is Hubble completes epic deployment sequence and ready for focusing. Astronomers hope to get closer to Big Bang that shaped the universe 100 million years after Hubble. Islam Said on what follow.
The James Webb Space Telescope has finished a challenging 2-week deployment phase, unfolding its massive, gold-plated, flower-shaped mirror panel in preparation for studying every phase of the cosmic history. More powerful than the Hubble Space Telescope, the $10 billion Webb Space Telescope scans the sky for light flow from the first stars and galaxies formed 13.7 billion years ago. To do this, NASA needed to equip the Webb with the largest and most sensitive mirror ever released, which scientists call the Golden Eye. The telescope is so big that it had to be folded like origami to fit inside a rocket. The solar screen the size of a tennis court was unfurled earlier this week, which was the most dangerous operation. The shield is permanently installed between the telescope and the Sun, Earth and Moon, and the sun-facing side can withstand temperatures up to 110 degrees Celsius.
Webb has the potential to blow people away, even people who are used to pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope. And I know that is hard to imagine. He's led the Webb Mirror development team as the US Space Agency NASA. Webb is so powerful. Almost anywhere we look, we are going to be breaking new ground in a huge way.
Webb should arrive at a destination of 1.6 million kilometers away in the next 2 weeks. According to NASA, setting up a telescope takes about 5.5 months. The next steps include adjusting the telescope's optical system and calibrating the scientific instrument. If all goes well, scientific observations will begin this summer. Astronomers want to go closer to the Big Bang that shaped the universe 100 million years after Hubble, in addition to the study of distant planets to determine their origin and evolution.
To sport now and to the biggest 2022 tournament. Yesterday's night Algerian national team was the last arrival to Cameroon, and today's at 5 p.m. we will see the kickoff of the 33rd African Cup of Nations 2021 that was delayed to 2022. Let's follow this report. The African Cup of Nations, or as it is nicknamed, the AFCON. It will be the first major football tournament of 2022 that kicks off on Sunday. A host of Premier League and European stars will descend on Cameroon, with the host facing Burkina Faso in the opening game. first scheduled to start in June 2021, but subsequently brought forward to January last year to avoid Cameroon's rainy season. The tournament has been delayed to 2022 because of the coronavirus pandemic. For the second successive tournament, the Nations Cup will have 24 participants. That means 6 groups of 4, with the top 2 qualifying for the last 16 alongside the 4 best-ranked third-place sides. Games will be held at 1 p.m., 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. all-time GMT during the group stages, with the 2 latter kickoffs timing being used in the knockout stage from Sunday 23rd January. The ball being used is Imbro Togo, named after a multicolored final overstated outfit initially designed for royalty, but now popular throughout Cameroon. And the question should be raised before starting: who are the main contenders? It is really hard to look past holders Algeria, who are on a 34-match unbeaten run and led by the star Riyad Mahrez. On the other hand, Sadio Mane's Senegal, Africa's top-ranked side for the past 3 years, were runners-up in 2019 and among the main challengers, while record 7-time champions Egypt boast arguably one of the best players in the world right now, in Mohamed Salah, who has shown for Liverpool this season. Ghana and Nigeria are among the continent's most successful countries, while Cameroon chasing their 6th. Mali could be surprise package after reaching the World Cup playoffs by going unbeaten despite being stripped of home advantage. Ivory Coast, Morocco and Tunisia are among the other former champions present, and the other end of the spectrum, Comoros and the Gambia are first-time qualifiers. All in all, one can say since Samuel Eto'o take the football leadership in Cameroon's federation, people all around the African continent are hoping to see a different organization to a better forward future in the continent of gold and silver. Inshallah, we will the best of luck with our national football team. To this end, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a reminder from our main stories. Chinese city of Tianjin to test 40 million people after COVID outbreak, and the port near Beijing has begun mass testing after 20 children and adults tested positive, including at least 2 with Omicron. As order is restored in Kazakhstan, its future remains murky. The tragic events of last week, in which dozens lost their lives, have exposed hidden political tensions. An airstrike in Ethiopia's Tigray region killed 56 people and injured 30, including children in camp for displaced people. Amazing milestone, James Webb telescope fully deployed in space. Webb's travel will scan the cosmos for light streaming for stars and galaxies from 30 billion years ago. The AFCON 2021 begins today, Sunday, when host Cameroon face Burkina Faso in Group A at 5 p.m. Less than 3 hours from now, local time here in Algiers. That's all for now. Stay tuned for our official news edition at 6. And for now, let's prepare ourselves to watch the beginning of the AFCON, praying and hoping Algeria will hold the title again and bring it home. Bye-bye.